Hello and welcome to another episode of Preparing for Work, in which we talk about different situations that graduates and interns often encounter early on in their careers. And yes, you may even find the odd bit of reassurance too. One of the things organisations do is appraisals. So that's an appraisal of your performance over the year. Sometimes they do them once a year, sometimes more often than that. Generally within your one-to-ones with your line managers, you should be able to have conversations fairly regularly about your career and where your development is, and any gaps that you may need to bridge. But one of the things that I always tell graduates is that the most important thing is to get regular feedback. So don't wait until your appraisal to get the feedback, but also think about who are the people that you can get feedback from. Typically, I've found graduates will gravitate towards their line managers, which is understandable because line managers tend to be kind of the most important person initially in someone's career. However, I would encourage you also to think about other people that can give you feedback, and that it's not just a line manager one-stop shop. Think about the people you work with quite regularly, your teammates, maybe champions or stakeholders, maybe even clients. You'll be asked at your appraisal to sort of submit names of potentially people that you work with. Perhaps your line manager knows your work really well and will approach those people directly anyway, and that will feed into your appraisal and your performance review. In my experience, one of the hardest things that happens particularly early on in your career is accepting feedback. Or even sourcing it actually. But the feedback process at university often tends to happen in written form. It's very rare that it happens sort of verbally. We try and encourage it, more sort of on courses to do it peer to peer, but it's quite an uncomfortable process. I think the preparation that's involved in that is quite important. And I think you could take some of those skills and bring them into the workplace, because within the organisation, you're more likely to get verbal feedback than you would read written. And so that's quite difficult. And often in your first sort of maybe 2 or 3 times of submitting work, you're very likely to get feedback that you may not expect even. And thinking about UCL and how we have such high standards of ourselves, if nobody else, we often find it quite difficult in the workplace to accept that feedback and to understand it for what it is. And I would say that every bit of feedback, even if you see it as oh my God, it's my first time that I've properly failed at something, is to take that opportunity, to see it as something that genuinely people feel is, they've taken time to give you. They've been as clear as they can be about this piece of feedback, and to take it as an opportunity to learn, and in a way that you can improve and get better and better and better. And especially early on in your career, this isn't something that we don't expect. As line managers, we do expect you to kind of mess up from time to time, and that all of this is a learning process, right? The other thing with feedback is it's often very easy to feel quite defensive of something. And it's a natural human emotion to feel, oh my God, I've really messed up. Like if someone's giving me some feedback and I feel quite strongly about it, it's quite even harder to accept, right? So I would be very clear about that feedback. So it's important that it's in context. Ideally, it's timely, because we know that the more timely the feedback and the more context there is around it, the more it is for someone to be able to accept it and to do something with it that's useful. So, if you're not sure about the feedback, be very clear, because it's not very useful to sort of say, oh, you're not very good at X, Y, and Z, without having the sort of backup of, an example or two. That would be really helpful. I think whilst trying to absorb the feedback, there are a few things that might be quite useful to help in this. One is, often to give negative feedback can take quite a lot of courage from somebody, whether it's your teammate or stakeholder or line manager. So the first thing I would do is say thank you, because it can take quite a lot to get there. But also, if you haven't got the opportunity to clarify the situation, because, for example, in 360 feedback, it's anonymous, obviously, is to think about, to really pause and reflect on the situation and the feedback that you've been given. I think this helps to take some time out to really let it sort of sink in. So you don't have to respond right away. And, if you're pushed to, just say that, that's quite a lot to take in, and I'd really like some time just to think about it. So if I could just take some time out, that would be helpful. And hopefully that will be helpful to you. The other thing that often happens is that we're very self-critical. And the feedback that we get often is really helpful, but sometimes the initial reaction can be that we really beat ourselves up over it. And I think it's really just to see feedback as a real opportunity to learn, and especially early on in your careers, feedback is like a gold nugget. It really is. It's one of the best things that will help you improve your role and your skill sets, sometimes your mindset, and give you that self-awareness to be able to take yourself to the next level, and to help you improve yourself. So just try and think of it in that regard. I really hope that you found some of these points really useful, and that it's giving you that space to think about how you might also handle these situations as they crop up. If you want to explore any of this further, please feel free to book a careers consultant appointment. We're not just here for the job search, we're also here to help you through your transition between university and work. Before you go, if you found this video useful, please do like it. And also, if you'd like to remain in touch and know about any of the latest videos that are coming up, then please do ding that bell. Thank you.